are more judges, and you need to go back and read them because every one of them is just as interesting. The left-handed judge. Anybody know who the left-handed judge was? Ehud. Yeah. Ehud, the left-handed judge. Any of you left-handed? There you go. He's your patron saint right there. Go back and read about Ehud. He was actually one of the good judges. But one of the things that we read out of all of this that I mentioned briefly last week is that the people forgot to train their children. They saw all of these miraculous things happen. They saw all of these times of deliverance. They saw what God would do in their midst. And they appreciated those. And it says they lived by God's ways, but they failed to teach their children. And so each time we go through this cycle, we hear the words, and a generation arose that knew not the Lord or his ways. And I can't think of anything sadder than that one line. Because it says that we've not done our job. We've not done what we were supposed to do as parents and as a church. And every time that there's a child that's baptized here, this congregation takes vows that they will assist in raising this child in the ways of the Lord. In other words, you have a responsibility for every one of those children that were just up here at the front. Not just their parents, you. And what are we supposed to be training them? All the ways of the Lord. Teach them God's ways. Teach them these lessons, not just these Bible stories. You know, these would make a great comic book, but that's not what we need to give our kids. We need to give them the lessons that are behind all of these, what it is that brought all of these things about. We need to teach them. We need to show them. We need to live out our faith. One of the questions that continues to arise is how come the Old Testament's so bloody, so gruesome, so kill everybody? I'm hoping you're coming to some conclusions on your own. It's what it says in each one of these little segments, one of these vignettes. And the evil arose, and the people forgot God. And a generation grew up that did not know God or his ways. And the oppression was great. God had told them, even back in Deuteronomy, you need to drive out all of the people that are there before you. Why? Because I don't want them to infect you. Now, I don't mean with any kind of disease. Infect you with the evil that is there in the midst. They worship Baals. They worship other gods. They worship the evil that goes on. You need to drive them out. Why? Well, because I don't think that you're strong enough to be able to withstand that on your own. So you need to drive that out. Did the Hebrews do that? Did they follow that law of the covenant? Absolutely not. They allowed them to live in the midst of the people. Now, whether that was because they felt sorry for them, whether that was because they were just too difficult to drive out, whether that was because they found some of the things that they had and some of the things that they did attractive, I don't know. It doesn't matter. The people did what was evil in the sight of God. In other words, they broke covenant. The contract that they had with God, they disregarded. So God disregarded it too, right? Wrong. God did not disregard it. In fact, over and over and over again, the deliverance that he gives, the judges that he provides, are all as a result of his loving kindness. And he took pity on the people, and he raised up a judge. You can't let evil sit in the midst of God's people and expect that it's not going to infect what we do or what we say. It doesn't work that way. We need to be vigilant. Like Darlene kind of reminded us this morning, are these problems that the church could face today? Absolutely. Could we be that people that forgets about God? Yeah, you bet. Okay, the 4 stages. If you haven't gotten them by now, let me give them to you. There's a falling away. And the people did evil in the sight of God. And a generation arose that did not know God or his ways. They began falling away from God. And now they always, I think, to some extent, had fallen away. It's just, it got worse and worse and worse. And so what happens? God punishes them. How does God punish them? He says, fine. If you want to be like all of the other peoples on earth, here you go. And he put them into the care of the peoples around them. He made them servants and slaves of all of these other kings. And then they would cry out in all of the oppression, and so God would raise up a deliverer. And that cycle repeated itself over and over and over again. So what's God's attitude toward repentance? When the people repented, when they came back to him, did he say, now listen, that's it. No more. You can't keep doing it this way. Or did he just forgive? Not the computer I've got now, the one I had just previous to this, and part of the reason why I've got the computer I've got now. Got a nasty virus. Came in an email attachment. Couldn't get it out. Finally, the technician said the only way we're going to get this out is if we reformat. In other words, we're going to wipe out everything. And then it'll be gone. Now, after that, you could go back into that computer and you could look for that virus and you would not find it. Why? Because it wasn't there. It's as though it had never been there. When God forgives, it's as though it never was there. It didn't take place. God covers it over and sees it no more. And so, unlike us who, husbands, wives, sometimes we keep score, don't we? Yes, honey, I forgive you. Yes, that's fine. Yes, you're forgiven for that as well. And we do that a number of times until finally we get to a breaking point and we go, do you remember when you did this and this and this and this and this and this and this? And we drag them all out, don't we? In counseling terms, we call that keeping score. It's a technical term. And we use that against one another like a club. But when God forgives, it's gone. It takes place no more. This is the God that we serve. Now, one of the things that you may discover while reading Judges is that you have this view that, wow, these were just superhuman people. Now, if you get that, why don't you go back and read about a guy by the name of Gideon. He's my favorite in there. I love Gideon. Why? Well, if the video had been clearer, you would have seen who Gideon was. Gideon was a farmer. He was from a small family, from the smallest of tribes, and he was the smallest boy in the family. Likely leader, right? This is the one we'd appoint, right? Well, it's certainly the one God appointed. But Gideon, too, has all of these questions. He says, really, God, this just doesn't seem possible. Why would you pick me? There's others around me that are much stronger, much brighter, much faster, much better warriors. God says, yeah, but I picked you. Gideon, you're the one. Now, even Gideon, with all of his questions, with all of his doubts, finally gives in. And the battle that Gideon wages probably should have won right from the get-go. And if God were smart, he would have let Gideon do it his way. Why? Well, because when Gideon went up against the enemy, he brought with him 32,000 soldiers. Good strategy, right?